Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's study. And we're going to finish off some of what we were doing yesterday. But before we do, can you join me in a word of prayer? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning asking for your presence in our lives, in this study. Through thy Spirit, you can speak to us, that you can bring conviction and power. And we know, Lord, that we live in a difficult time in this world's history as we see society collapsing and heading towards civil war, as we see the hatred that exists in so many hearts. But we also know, Lord, that your Spirit is still striving with man, and that there are many souls who are seeking to understand the truth and to make correct decisions. And we wish that we could somehow help all of them. But Lord, you've given us individually a work to do in our sphere of influence. And we just pray, Lord, that sphere of influence can affect lives who then can affect others. We ask for forgiveness for the things that we have done and said and the time that we have wasted and the injury that we have done personally to your work by our unchristlike characters. And we just pray that you can help us today as we seek you. Be with us in this study. We pray and ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so just to kind of review a little bit of what we were doing yesterday. So we were addressing the seven kings, and we're saying that the seven kings are not the seven heads in any of the beasts. And as we had gone through Revelation 17, we could see that the explanation of the woman riding the scarlet-colored beast is done by reference to the beast of Revelation 13. So when it talks about the beast that thou saw, that was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, that's not a reference to the scarlet-colored beast, because that can't be true of the scarlet-colored beast. It can only be true of the beast of Revelation 13, which receives the deadly wound. And that deadly wound is in the fifth head, and the sixth head would be the United States, which is the second beast of Revelation 13. And when we look at Revelation 17, then we can see that we have represented in the 10 horns the United Nations. We have represented in the seven kings the presidents of the United States at the time when the second beast of Revelation 13, that is the false prophet, is going to speak like a dragon. And then we have the representation, of course, of the papacy in the beast that was, is not, and is also the eighth, right? So the fact that the eighth is not one of the kings, but it just follows the kings, right? So if we can look at it in the sense that there's a deadly wound that's received by the papacy in 1798, that the United States has these 70 years, the days of one king. It has horns like a lamb, but it will speak as a dragon at the end. And this occurs in the repeat of Millerite history that begins in 1989. So the count for those kings would be 1989. And then we can use the parallel from the seven kings of Persia, and we can line those up with these presidents. Cyrus lining up with Bush first, Cambyses with Clinton, Falsmurtus with Bush II, Darius with Obama, Xerxes with Trump, as we had already done in Daniel 11, verse 2, and Artabanus, the placeholder, marked with Biden, also a placeholder. Now, Artaxerxes, of course, is the one who establishes the civil administration in Jerusalem by giving this decree to Ezra. So Ezra is going to administer that decree, but the decree of Artaxerxes is regarding the judges and the magistrates who are then going to set up this civil government to complete the specifications of the prophecy. that is the 3 decrees, Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, are all needed in originating, affirming, and completing the specifications of the prophecy, as Ellen White says. So we can see that in these 7 kings of the United States, this isn't about release from captivity. These 7 presidents are going to show a movement towards captivity, right? So this Civil War president, who would be the next president, whether it's Trump or someone else, no matter what happens, the United States is extremely divided. If Trump wins, there's going to be a very vitriolic response to Trump's victory. You never know what you could see. You might even see whoever becomes president being assassinated. It's always possible. Especially when you have like a civil war, you have people who may be there to protect a president who are on the side of those that are, opposed to the president. So it makes a president open to those types of things. And I'm not saying the next president's going to be assassinated, but I'm saying those types of things can happen in a civil war. But if it's Trump, it could be Trump that's assassinated or whatever. If Trump wins, there's going to be this very negative response. If Trump doesn't win, and it's seen that this was done through censorship, manipulation of the election in some way, there are many American citizens who would see it their civil duty to begin a civil war, right? So the United States is a powder cake. I think everybody in the world would recognize that. Yeah. So this is the situation that we are facing when we look at these kings, these presidents of the United States. It's not going to be as simple as we get a president who's going to be, in favor of a Sunday law. And this isn't even about the Sunday law, because we know that it's under the 8th, not under the 7th, that the Sunday law occurs, right? Because when the beast and the 10 horns and the United States are united, that's when the Sunday law occurs. So the Civil War president, it's hard to say exactly how events are going to unfold. But that's where I would say that we are at, that we can just safely say that the next president marks this division in the United States, the end of civility. I don't know. Any thoughts on that quick review? Well, okay. So Angela says if RFK is elected as an independent, he's definitely not going to be elected as an independent. So, I mean, it's kind of a moot point. He just doesn't have enough support, and doesn't have support very much on the left or on the right. So I don't think that's going to happen. It would affect the outcome of the election, but I'm not sure if he's going to draw away more from the left or more from the right, because there is a part of the left that is still like the left that used to exist. That is the left that's against big pharma. That left does still exist. And then, of course, you have a right, the part of the right that would like some of the things that he's saying. But I don't think it really matters, for to predict who's going to be president. I don't think is really the issue here, because we're not sure how things are going to unfold. But one of the things that when we start to look at current events, and we start to, fit our interpretation, change our interpretation of prophecy to fit current events. That's a difficult thing, right? Because we see that happening all the time with Christians. I mean, if you go back, well, you can go back, at least I can go back to the 70s, and how Christians interpreted Bible prophecy to somehow reflect that what was happening today is marking, like, the Antichrist is going to be next or whatever. So our safety is in following Miller's rules and not speculating on the things that have not yet occurred. All we can say is that there are 7 kings, and we can line them up this way, and this is consistent with what this movement is understood. Now, does somebody have a comment, or? No, okay.
Someone just joined.
Oh, okay. So does anybody have a comment about this?
I think we covered quite a bit of this, with what we were looking at yesterday. I mean, the way in which this line to the lower right is coming together, I think is better than what we've seen before, because it fits more with the way that the scriptures themselves were written. So when we're looking at this, placing Trump as the equivalence of Xerxes as the 5th in this line, just it fits more logically.
Now, we still have one point that we have to address.
Right.
And the point is 5 are fallen, 1 is.
Okay.
And 1 is yet to come. Now, the way that this has been done, so let's go to Revelation 17. Now, the way this has been done always has been in relation to the 7 heads. But we've come to the conclusion that the 7 kings are not the 7 heads. And now we did address it, but I just want to make this really clear that there is, from Revelation 13, because that's what's being brought into this picture in when in verse 7, the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and the beast that carrieth her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. So that is going to be describing the scarlet-colored beast, but not the scarlet-colored beast by itself, or even the woman by herself, but this mixture of church and state, right? And so we see in this, this Revelation 17 is addressing the end of the world, and we know that Revelation 13 is dealing with the period of the papacy itself, the 1260, and when it receives the deadly wound. And so we can look at Revelation 13. I just need to share this screen here. And we can see that Revelation 13 is now being used to explain Revelation 17. Right? So it's going to say, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. So this beast has to be the beast of Revelation 13, the first beast, what we would call the beast. It's always referred to the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. It's not the scarlet-colored beast that could be described here. So we've, I think, come to that conclusion that is how this is being explained. That is, the woman on the beast has to be explained by referring back to the papacy. That we can see that the woman is the papacy, and that she is riding the kings of the world. And if we're going to address the heads here, it explains what those are. Right? The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, which is the city of Rome. To say that these 7 heads now are the 7 kingdoms of Bible prophecy, or the 7 forms of Roman government, or 7 popes. None of that would make sense in the context of this chapter. So these 7 heads that are 7 mountains just is referring to the city of Rome itself. So the woman is sitting in Rome. It's the papacy, right? And then it says there are 7 kings, right? So those 7 kings are referring to the beast of Revelation 13, the second beast. That is, we have in this time, we have the beast that was and is not. So it is not during this 70 years, which are called the days of one king in Isaiah. But here it's going to be that there are 7 kings. Now, when it says 5 are fallen and 1 is, and another is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. The question is, how can we get this, that it's explained here to John, that it's somehow in our time, that is in the time of Biden, that this explanation is given, right? So this would be, it's the main problem always in interpreting Revelation 17 is, how can we know when is? How can we know we're at this point of history in this explanation, that we're not in the time of John when he's saying 5 are fallen and 1 is, and that we're not in 1798, or even just in this broad period from 1798 until until the Sunday Law, right? That we're actually in this time. How can the angel be giving him this explanation that places it here now? Okay.
Well, with the way in which you're asking the question, if we were considering this as well from the spirit of prophecy, looking directly at manuscript 32 of 1896, and specifically paragraph 36.
Okay.
Doesn't that help us to identify the time in which this is actually giving and it is having reference?
Okay. So that's going to be, let's see, I'm just going to get it here. So it's 1896.
Right?
Which one?
32. And go down to paragraph 36.
Okay. Well, how do I do this? It's not showing me my references.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah, so I can find the manuscript, but I can't, I'd have to count the paragraphs manually. 5, 10, 15. Okay, so how does the paragraph begin?
God has warned his people of the perils before them.
Okay, so God has warned his people of the perils before them. John beholds the things which will be in the last days, and he sees a people working counter to God. Read Revelation 12, 17, 14, 10 to 12, and chapter 17 and 13. John sees the company who have been deceived. He says, I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. And they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. So what is there that you see in that paragraph?
Okay. When we're looking at this as Sister White had written it, if we're comparing as you were just doing chapters 17 and 13, but also throwing into it chapter 12, 17, and then 14, 10 to 12.
And then she's going to create that quote from Revelation 16.
Correct. Okay, now I see the comment from the chat.
Yeah, I can share the screen.
Okay. Okay, the point when Sister White was looking at this, she is making it clear that this company has been deceived. And then she comes up with the quote from Revelation 16 about the unclean spirits like frogs.
Mhm.
Now, hasn't it been fairly well established that these unclean spirits are representational of Fox, CNN, and the Eternal World Television Network?
Well, in one way. I mean, obviously, this is the sixth plague, and the sixth plague occurs after the close of probation during the time of Jacob's trouble. So,
Okay, but it's
but yeah, definitely there is a representation of which we can see that this is the media. This is the information that Satan is using, Protestant, Catholic, and um, I guess whatever you want to call it, secular, the dragon power or whatever.
Okay.
So you got all of them.
When we're looking at this, the next sentence of the following paragraph, for those who have rejected the truth, the light of God has departed.
Mhm.
If the truth found in Miller's rules is being set aside,
Mhm.
is there the light of God?
No.
They can't advance if they don't accept the light they're given.
Right.
But I still don't see how this helps us to show when is.
We've already got one example that has been addressed about these spirits like frogs. When we're looking at this, just like if we looked at Revelation 12:17, here we see the verse read, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. When was this initially being fulfilled?
Well, I mean, it's October 22, 1844 that you have that message begin, the third angel's message.
Okay. Now, Revelation 14:10 to 12, as you're noting,
Mhm.
this is part of the message of the third angel because it's giving a warning about how that same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So as we consider this from Revelation 14, we know that the message of the third angel is to go out. It is, I mean, it began to go out October 22nd, 1844, but it has not gone out because it has definitely arrived, but it has yet to be empowered.
Okay, still I don't follow how this is helping us to show where is. You need to be more direct.
What I'm trying to say is that we have all of these pieces that are being put before us. Are we able to put the pieces together in proper order?
Well, yeah, so we have all of these pieces, right? But in Revelation 17, it's going to say there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, right? And the other's not yet come. Now we know that the 10 horns which thou sawest in verse 12, it says, are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as of yet, right? So we know it's prior to the Sunday law, right? In which he is observing this situation, right? But it has to be, if we're saying that the 5th is Trump and the 6th is Biden, that means that this explanation must be coming from the time that we are in, right? And the question is, how can we place it specifically here? Because what you've given is, what I would say is just this broad idea that it's, it's since October 22nd, 1844, and before the Sunday law, and actually technically even before the 6th plague, right?
Right.
So you've narrowed it down into that very broad swath of time, but now we have to pinpoint it. He says that, and 1 is, how can we mark that is as being specifically Biden? I can say, well, it's before the Sunday law. And because there's 10 kings that have not received power. So it's in the time of the UN, but that could put us lots of places before the Sunday law. So we have to take all of the information here, and because we can't say that this is from John's time if the 7 kings are presidents of the United States, right? And we definitely can't say it's just from anywhere in the days of 1 king, in the time of the United States. It has to be at the time just before the Sunday law, right? Before the 10 kings received power 1 hour with the beast. So John is being brought to, I believe, to our time right now. But the question is, how can that be, right? How can this explanation only make sense to us right now? That we can say, well, all things were written, for us upon whom the end of the world has come. But there's going to be a time we can read Revelation 17, and we're going to be in the time of the 10 kings, right? We're not going to be in the time where is. So it seems kind of odd, but maybe this is God's providence, that the time when is when this is understood. Right? So we are now, for the first time in this movement, understanding that the 7 kings here are specifically referring to the presidents of the United States. And we're unraveling the riddle at the time when it is marking. That this couldn't have been unraveled during the time of Trump or any time subsequent to that. Now that's pretty for lack of a better word, narcissistic to say, here we are figuring out this riddle for the first time, because we've just figured it out over the last couple of weeks. And we're saying the way that we can place that is that the riddle is understood at the time when the one is.
All right.
That's the only way I can say when we know is. That is now. Right? So before the five are fallen, no one can understand this riddle. Right?
Okay.
So we have to understand this explanation only now. And that's what we've done. So to do that is very focused upon, well, here we are, and we're now saying, well, the one is, we're in that time, and we're unraveling this riddle for the first time. But that is very, sort of self-focused. It's, is that all we can do? But I don't see any other way to explain this to know when the one is. And you can see with the riddle and how God works that it makes sense that something, when it is understood, when we pass over the ground of fulfilled prophecy, light is going to reflect back on past events. Those present events are going to reflect back upon the past, and they'll be understood. And then light is going to shine forward from those past events. For our feet, it's going to shine ahead on the path. But this is the only way that this makes sense to me from what we've studied. And then we can say, the beast that was not, even he is the eighth. So it's gonna say we have this seven kings, five are fallen. We can now say, those are just starting with Bush Senior, Bush the first. Trump is the fifth, he's fallen. One is, that's Biden, right? There's another that's not yet come. And when he comes, it's a short space. So that's going to be that period of time in which, now you can see how different this interpretation is from anything this movement has done. To take the seven kings and just directly say, these are the seven presidents from 1989, from the time of the end. And it couldn't be understood, prior, right? So we're saying that, this whole riddle was given for us right now. That's why I say it's kind of narcissistic. I mean, who are we then to claim that we're now understanding this riddle, and this was really written for whoever understood this riddle, for them to do it in the present tense, the one that is, during that time. But we can see then, there still is another king, right? And then there's the eighth, the one that we've been looking for. And he's the papacy. He's the beast of Revelation 13. And the 10 horns, these are 10 kings. Now, these 10 horns that are 10 kings, these are not referring to the 10 horns on the beast of Revelation 13. These are referring to the 10 horns on the scarlet colored beast, because they're the 10 kings or the 10 horns at the end of the world. And they've received no kingdom as yet, right? So even though we have this beast, which is the world, it has the United Nations represented there in the horns, but they receive no power, but they receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast of Revelation 13. These have one mind and shall give power and strength unto the beast. They shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and Kings of kings, right? The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, right? Now, we have the waters, but she's also sitting upon the seven heads, which we know then are the hills of Rome. And then we know that these 10 horns, the kingdoms of the world, will turn against the beast. He shall hate the whore, shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So this is the drying up of the water of the river Euphrates. This is going to be the end of that beast. So, and we're going to see this in chapter 18, right? For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree. So this is the UN, right? And give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So the UN is going to give their kingdom unto the papacy. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So then this makes sense here with this fall of Babylon. Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. This is now Babylon the Great is fallen, right? Has become the habitation of devils. Now we know the city of Babylon has three parts at the end: the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, because they're all united, right? But that woman herself is Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, right? And so it's going to describe this destruction and how they all mourn the loss of this great world system, religious system as well. So they're all connected. So to me, this makes sense. Revelation 17 now makes sense to me for the first time in my life. And it explains Revelation 13, and it explains Millerite history. It explains everything for me, but I don't know about for you who are viewing this, whether you're live here or whether you're watching online. Am I just reading into things that are not there, right? Because we understand the subjectivity of human nature. I could be wrong. I could be seeing things incorrectly, right? So I know that. But that's why we've been so careful in how we've approached all of this information. So we brought so many different lines together. And we can see, it starts with the last seven kings of Judah, which we still haven't put on this line. But if we're going to put them here, I might as well do that. I'll just copy this. Okay, so we just put these under here. So now we're going to have Manasseh. So we're not going to have Manasseh here. We're going to have Manasseh here. So we just get rid of this. Okay, Manasseh. What's his name? Ammon. Josiah. Oops. Jehoiakim. No, we got, before we have Jehoahaz, pardon me. And then we have Jehoiakim. And Jehoiachin. Zedekiah. And you can see then how these are lining up with what ends up happening in our history. And then you have Christ. Now we know here from Zedekiah to Christ that there's this overturn, right? So you're going to have Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon is the kingdom then. It's overturned to Media Persia, overturned to Greece, overturned to Rome, and he shall come whose right it is. Now, we can sort of see here that is sort of depicted here, right? At this time. So So with this civil war president, we're going to see the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. The beast, of course, is going to parallel, in its resurrection, it's going to parallel Christ. So we have this seventh president. Doesn't mean that there isn't going to be different various governments of the United States of the false prophet, however it's going to manifest itself. So it sort of leaves room open for events that are going to follow until ultimately the papacy sits upon the throne of the earth with the support of the United Nations and the United States. But so this still sort of begs another question. If this is the case, right, that the is now, why would God write the book of Revelation and this riddle in such a way that its primary application is to this time that we are in, not to some future time and not to some previous time? Why would the is need to be understood now? Why would God place the is here, right? Because he could have placed the is in 1989. He's going to say there's 7 kings. The first, we're in this time of this king, and there's going to be 6 more, right? Or even when we look at Daniel chapter 11, right? And it's gonna be in the time of Cyrus, right? So we say, well, why wouldn't we be in the time of Cyrus? 3 shall yet stand up in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than them all, and he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. So you can see that the Daniel in his vision in Daniel chapter 10, he's going to be counting kings from the time in which he is having this vision, right? He's not going to be counting it from some future time. So the question is, why is John then counting these kings from our time, like from our day, back in a sense, right? 5 of them have already fallen. You understand the problem. So that's the question that needs to be examined, right? So we can't prove things by themselves. We have to have some way in which we can answer that objection. So how do we do that?
I'm thinking of the manna it was given day by day as the people needed it. And I was also getting John 16 quite strongly, especially from 8 on down. Verse 13 says, howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth, for he shall not speak of himself. But whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. And 16 says, a little while, and ye shall not see me, was not. And again, a little while, and you shall see me, is to come, because I go to the Father. And 21, a woman when she is in travail hath sorrow. Well, aren't we women in travail having sorrow, like labor, trying to figure out what is God showing us? Like, how is he fitting us for this time? Because her hour is come, but as soon as she is delivered of the child, when the revelation comes and it's clear to us, she remembereth no more the anguish for joy that a man is born into the world. We're not only waiting for the return of Christ, we're waiting for more of Christ as revealed in prophecy that we are trying to, as you say, unravel right now. So okay. All I can say is be of good cheer. Like, God is leading us, and sure, we may stumble and a few things might be wrong, but he's going to refine it. He will definitely bring truth to bear so that we can understand it.
I agree.
Okay. So, I mean, it's true that we're in that sort of situation, but that's been true in other times that people are like a woman in travail. I mean, and if we're going to apply a woman in travail, that's the time of Jacob's trouble. So we have these different 7s, like you have the 7 last plagues, right? You have the 7 kings, and at different times we're looking at it from a certain perspective, right? When the seven trumpets occur in the book of Revelation. I mean, God's people are at a certain point in which, the seventh trumpet begins to sound, right? So we're in this line of prophecy. But when you get to a place in a prophecy and it says, you are here, right? It's like you go to a sign and, it's a map of a mall or something and it says you are here, how do they know, right? So you are here. And we're saying, well, right now, the you are here that's in this riddle was not true until we came to that place, we came to where that map is located. And only then could we say, in reality, five are fallen, one is. Right? You couldn't say that 20 years ago and it be presently tensed true, right? It couldn't be true in the present tense, but we can now do that. That's what we are saying. Five are fallen and one is. And the question still needs to be answered. How can we prove that we are in the time when the one is? That we just happen to be here now, looking at this sign saying that you are here? You understand the problem, right?
Well,
So
confirm his word with signs following. That's all I can say. Like, I don't even know how he's going to do it exactly, but I know he's going to do it.
yeah. Now we know it's in the time when the beast is not, right? So it's true that the beast is still not when this one is, right? So, and we can place these seven presidents. The point is that we have to place these seven kings as the seven presidents at the time of the end, based upon the model that we have of the first seven kings of Persia and the last seven kings of Judah. So then the kings that thou sawest to receive no kingdom of yet must still be, this is still in the context of this riddle. So we know whenever this riddle, the time is that this is understood, it has to be understood in the time of the seven kings, obviously, because five are fallen, one is, and one is not yet come. It has to be in the time when the beast that was and is not. And it has to be in the time in which the 10 kings, which are on the scarlet-colored beast, have received no kingdom as yet. So it's before the Sunday law. So we can put it sort of in that broad sense. We can say, well, obviously we're in the time of the seven kings. And we're before the time of the 10 kings receiving power. But now we're going to say, well, there is one. So the question is, why? And I'm not answering this question well. But the question is, why is it given from this perspective, five are fallen? Now, we could say that the reason why it's given from that perspective has to do with the heads of Revelation 13. So in Revelation 13, we know that it's true, five are fallen, one is. The one that is the United States. And there's going to be a seventh head. That's the UN, right? So in those last three heads, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh, is the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon, right? So we know that's true. And it could be that when it talks about these seven kings, it's not talking about the seven heads of the beast of Revelation 13, but it's paralleling those. That is, it's giving us, from that perspective, the reason why it's going to be understood after five are fallen, after five of the presidents are gone. Now, the question is then, why would this riddle then need to be understood now, not earlier, and not later? Would it be too late if this riddle was written, 6 are fallen, 1 is? Or 7 have fallen, and the 8th is, right? Now you see, of course, you couldn't say the 8th is because the 8th is not yet, right? So you obviously couldn't put it in that time. But why isn't it not written in, 3 are fallen, 1 is? And you understand what I'm saying? Because we have these 7 kings, we can place them here at the time of the end, but the riddle only becomes true in the time of Biden. So why? We've sort of answered it, but we need to nail this down more specifically.
Because we weren't ready for it.
Okay, so we weren't ready for it. So that means we had to go through an experience first, right? So one of the things is it's going to have to happen after July 18th, correct? Why do I say that?
Because that's the foundation that it's established on. In a sense.
Okay. So we say it happens after July 18th. So it has to happen somewhere after July 18th, and it's going to, right? So we know that 186 days after July 18th, we can say 5 are fallen, 1 is. Now, we could say that technically after January 6th. So let's go here and address this point. So this is addressing Colin's study that we referred to yesterday. So just really briefly, Colin had created this chart, and this chart addresses the 1533 days in Millerite history. For August 11th, 1840, there's going to be 1533 days to October 22, 1844, 1347 days to April 19th, and 186 days further than to October 22nd. So he then takes the election of Trump. So that's when Trump is declared president, November 9th, 2016. And he counts 1,533 days to the inauguration of Joe Biden. So we've already established this before. And now we haven't explicitly looked at this 186 days from July 18, 2020 to January 20th, but it's there. We addressed the 187 days from July 18 to January 21st, 2021. What happens January 21st, 2021?
Biden takes office.
Yeah. So you're going to have January 21st, 2021. No, it's not Biden taking office because he does this at January 20th. That's the inauguration. January 21st, the School of the Prophets is sold. Right?
All right, I stand corrected. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we have 187 days to January 21st. Now, of course, to January 20th is an inclusive count of 187 days, or a cardinal count of 186, right? An ordinal count, I guess, inclusive, you would call it 187 days, right? Which is also the ordinal count, right? So it's 186 cardinal days. So you got the ordinal, cardinal, and inclusive in this case. So, so anyway, we have these periods of time that we've noticed, right? So we noticed, at least I did. I mean, I noticed that if January 21st, 2021 was 187 days from July 18th, that we had the 186 days to January 20th, but we didn't put it in this structure like this that Colin has. So we know that this is correct, right? This is in God's providence. Now, we do have, and I'm going to have to find it here. So got a lot of charts that I have to search through, but I should have noted which page it was on. But I'm just going to go, whoops. I think actually I started setting it up. Never mind. Okay, so we'll go right here. Okay, so I have this chart that I started this morning. And here I have the 1,533 days. And then we have July 18th here. And then I marked 186, 187 to January 20th, 21st. So I'm just a bit lazy there instead of marking each of them, just also space-wise. So, so I could have put January 21st at the bottom, 187 at the bottom, 186 at the top. I could have lined it up that way, but I just did it this way. It's lazy. But we also have 1,533 days that have been marked before. And that's from January 14th, 2017. So this is Glen Park Hall. So I'm just going to write that in here. It's this way. Glen Park. And oops. Park. And that's going to be Paneum. Right, so Jeff is going to do his presentation where he marks Paneum. And that's going to be 1,533 days to March 27th, 2021. So that's going to be connected to the Levitical chiasm, to all these other structures, right? Now, then we have, so I'm going to just put this other stuff in here that we also have to take note of. So when we're looking at information, we can't just pick some of it. We have to look at all of it. So we know that we're going to have July 4th, 2020. Now, what's July 4th, 2020? Oops. Put it like this.
Wasn't that the end of the 100 days of prayer?
Right. So it's an end of 100 days of prayer. And that's extremely significant because that's going to begin on March 27th, 2021. Right? Or pardon me. Yeah, 2020. Right? So you're going to have March 27th, 2020. And you're going to have this 100 days of prayer. And that's going to be inclusive, right? So that means they're expressing a count of 99 days as, and it's not 100 years, 100 days, right? And we know that's 144,000 minutes. Okay, so you have this 100 days of prayer that's going to be there. And we know that we can then mark another event. So this one I'm going to have to do this way, which is why I didn't want to do this other way. And we're also going to have January 6th here. So January 6th, 2021. So January 6, 2021, the significance of that, you should know, that's going to be the siege of Washington. Okay. And that this is going to be a period, I'll borrow this. We're also going to have another period of 186 days. And that's going to go from here to here. Okay. So this period of 186 days We remember January 6th is what date on the biblical calendar? Does anybody remember? In 2021. It's the 22nd day of the 10th month on the biblical calendar. So I can just put here. Right, which symbolizes October 22. Now, in Colin's line, he's going to mark July 18th as the first day of the first month and January 20th as the 10th day of the seventh month. That is, he's going to mark this as April 19th and October 22. But you can see this is also marked as October 22, right? Just being the 22nd day of the 10th month with the 186 days. And I'm trying to remember if it's actually 186 or 187. I think it's okay. So July, stay on. Just gotta make sure I do this right. Yeah, so it's actually 186 days. So that was correct. Just making sure. So we have that 186 days. So you can see we have the same thing. So July 4th, is it a symbol of the first day of the first month for America? It's a symbol of the start of the United States, right? So can we see that yeah. And if we're going to parallel the United States with, Israel, it's going to be when they first begin to count the months as the first month, Moses is going to say this month is the beginning of months, right? So you're going to be counting now, this period for all these feasts, they're going to be counted from the first month, right? So you get the first day of the first month. So we can see how July 4th is the first day of the first month. Now, if July 4th is the first day of the first month, July 18th is what?
Passover.
It's Passover, right? Now we can say it's 14 days, so you can sort of say it's the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, however you want to look at it, right? Now, so you're going to have this same parallel there too, right? You're going to have January 6th being the Day of Atonement, right? Now, right? October 22. And then you're going to have 14 days leading you from the Day of Atonement. And that's going to lead you to where? It's going to lead you to the end of the Feast of Tabernacles, right? If we figure this all out. Right, so it's going to be after the Feast of Tabernacles ends. It's 14 days. Now we also know that this January 6th marks the beginning of 10 days of prayer that are going to end on January. So January 6th to January 16th. So that's just a cardinal count. So as you start to look at these all of the information, you start to get a bigger picture of what is happening here. Right? It's not as simple as just saying, well, there's 186 days from July 18th to January 20th, and there's 1,533 days from November 9th, 2016, and that we can then just say July 18th is parallel to April 19th, and January 20th is parallel to October 22, right? Because we already have that symbol with January 6th being the 22nd day of the 10th month on the biblical calendar. And we already have July 1st and the 186 days to that, right? So Iran points out January 6th is 1,013 days from today. And 1533 days, I have to read the rest of the thing here. Before January 6th is 1013 Julian. Okay, so 1013, so it's going to give you that October 13th symbol. Now this is of course important. This could start getting really complex, but we know that we have the October 13th, 2018 date in here as well, right? That is, we can take this chart and we can mark some other dates in here. We're going to have, October 13th, I'm not going to write them in, but October 13th, 2018 is going to be where we're going to count the 391 days. So we could put that whole chart dealing with October 13th, and we could put even the June 9th date in there. 2018, the 126 days to October 13th, 2018. And then you could put the 329 days to September 7th. And the center of that is March 27th, 2019. And then you're going to have, of course, the 63 days to November 9th, 2019. So you're going to have all of these structures intertwined with each other, right? So I'm not going to put them all in here. But we can see here that it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as just taking one of these pieces of information, one of the periods of 1,533 days, and one of the periods of 186 days, and just leaving it at that as a line, right? That this line is a progression of wheels within wheels. And so we have to consider all of those cogs, right? All of those gears, and figure out what they mean. And now that's what we did with Judges. So when we were doing the book of Judges, we weren't merely just looking at Judges and trying to line up events. We were actually understanding that these were a part of a structure, line upon line, with all of these different waymarks, and that these all interlocked with each other. And they were talking about our movement at the present time. Now, we weren't taking that as the primary interpretation of Judges. We're taking that as a secondary interpretation, just an interpretation that we could see that history applied to us. And we know that we're right now in a repeat of history, right? So we can interpret all of this based upon its parallels to Millerite history, but we know that 1,533 days can't just be marked from, November 9th, 2016 to January 20th, 2021, that it also has this other markings. And there's actually other periods of 1,533 weeks, which is, done as well. And then 1,533 days is 219 weeks. There's periods of 219 days. All of this connected to this prediction regarding Trump and Biden, right? So all of these things become interlocked with each other. We can't just take part of it out and examine it. Okay. Now, so one of the things that's happening, though, so when we've looked at these other lines of history, we have a repeat of history. Our movement is a repeat of history. But when we're dealing with Revelation 17, we're taking the primary interpretation of these seven kings as being these last seven presidents of the United States, if we want to put it that way, right? Now, Trump is the last Republican president before, the globalists take over the United States. So he's technically the last president of the United States in that sense. That is, as Republican in the truest sense. And he's actually going to represent us, despite the fact he's a narcissist jerk and isn't really a great person per se. As far as embodying that part of the United States, the idea of the Constitution and free enterprise and the rights of the individual, Trump actually always has stood for those. Those are basically the foundation of his whole understanding. He's a believer in the power of positive thinking. Norman Vincent Peale was his pastor, right? So he's this sort of, maybe almost you might call this secular Protestant that you have that actually created the Constitution. The idea of the Constitution wasn't to be a religious constitution promoting a particular religion. It was to give this freedom so that the United States could have religious freedom for people to believe what they wanted, but also the freedom to act within a society, to earn money, etc. Right? So that Constitution actually set up, whether they understood the economics of it or not, but giving all of that freedom, they created an environment where the United States could prosper, which it did, right? So Trump embodies all of that. And he's going to stir up all against the realm of Grecia. He's Xerxes, but he's going to lose to the globalists. Now, if Trump comes back into power again, he gets elected, well, that's kind of meaningless if it's going to be a civil war, right? It's just that the next president is the Civil War president. So whether it's Trump or anybody else, according to these lines that we look at, that's what's happening. So here we are interpreting Revelation 17 in this direct way, right? That is, it's not, when we deal with Revelation 17, we're not really dealing with a repeat of history, of Millerite history of our lines to get those 7 kings. We're just saying those are the last 7 kings. We can then, because of Millerite history, place the start of those 7 kings, right? So obviously we have to come to an understanding of the repeat of history to interpret Revelation 17 verse 10, to know when is. Right? But we're saying that this is the direct interpretation of this prophecy. There were 7 kings that began pagan Rome. There's 7 kings that end modern Rome. There were 7 kings that ended Judah. Right? Now we can say, of course, when we looked at those 7 kings, there's connections to Millerite history. But this is not primarily referencing Millerite history for these 7 kings. You understand what I'm saying? Right? We don't need to figure out the time of the end here to figure out these 7 kings. We just need to know that there are 7 kings, and it's in the time of the United States. It's just before the Sunday law. And it's going to be true that 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come prior to the Sunday law, when this riddle is unraveled. And that's pointing to us now, understanding this riddle. Right? Are we comfortable with this? Now, I know Stephen came in late, so he didn't see a lot of what we were presenting. But what we're saying, Stephen, is that that this riddle is only understood at the time of Biden, when we have the one that is. And that it's rather narcissistic of us to say, here we have now understood this in the time of Biden that the one is. That is the key to the riddle, is understanding when is. And it's only understood now in our history. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
Well, we had said that the one is Trump.
We had, but when we spent all of our time looking at at numbering these presidents. We agree that Reagan is the one who's going to make the league, right?
Yes.
But we don't line him up with Cyrus. That is, he lines up with Darius the Mede as far as the time of the end is concerned. So Bush the first is going to be the one who's the president that lines up with Cyrus. Now we've lined them up this way. Now Jeff did make a reference where he lined up Reagan and Cyrus, but we can see that that doesn't really make sense in the context of numbering these kings, right? There's obviously symbolism between Reagan and Cyrus, as well as many people have made parallels to Cyrus and Trump. But we could say that Bush the first must line up with Cyrus. So if we're going to count these, and we're going to say that the one that is Biden, we have to figure out how can we do that? How can we make it that the one that is not Trump? Now, part of it is we parallel this with, of course, why is it that the 5 are fallen, 1 is? Well, we know it's true of the papal beast that 5 of the heads are fallen, 1 is, and 1 is not yet come. So there's this type of parallel. But the question is, why are we given the 1 is if we're going to apply them to the presidents of the United States? Not in the time of Obama. They're not going to say in the time of Obama, 3 are fallen, 1 is, and there's going to be 3 that are going to stand up, and then the 4th is going to be the 8th, or whatever, It's just given, the riddle is given in this way to be understood at this time in the present tense now, not in the time of John, not in 1798. And we know it's in the time when the beast is not, so that's from 1798 to the Sunday Law. But we know it's in the time of these 7 kings. And so if these 7 kings are 7 presidents, how do we say when is, right? That's what we've been studying this morning before you got here. Then we went over to, Colin's study. But so we mostly studied this. And that's going to be the thing that we have to establish. Is this correct? Right? So we don't know that it's correct, that we could be doing something wrong. But we say that the 7th is going to be a Civil War president. And it doesn't matter really who it is from our perspective right now, whether we think it's going to be Trump or someone else. If Trump wins, it's Civil War. If Trump loses, it's Civil War. And that's going to be paralleled with what happens in the time of Zedekiah, and specifically even after, there is this division happening at the time when Jerusalem is falling. And then we can say, the overturn goes to Christ. Well, the beast is the one that's resurrected. And it's going to be the 8th, and it comes from the 7. That is, it's not one of the 7, because the beast is the papacy. And if these are presidents of the United States, you can't say the beast is one of the presidents of the United States, because the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, right? So it just means he follows the 7. But there is this connection to the 5 and the 6. So we could say that there's just this parallel with the heads of the beast of Revelation 13 that parallels this. Just like there's the beast that is not, Biden is going to parallel this. But this is the United States. And then we also have the 10 horns. The 10 horns have not received power as of yet in the time in which the 1 is. But they shall receive power 1 hour with the beast. So that's going to be when the beast is resurrected, the 8th head, so to speak, right? If you want to look at the heads of the beast of Revelation 13. But he's also the 8th in the sense that he follows the 7 kings, right? So this is a different interpretation than we've had before. And if you haven't seen all of the videos, you need to go back and watch them again. But this is a unique interpretation. We didn't know we would get here. But we're just saying that the riddle is understood only when it is true that 5 are fallen and 1 is. And these are presidents of the United States. So that's, I don't know if you have any more comments on it, Stephen.
Yes, I'd have to consider.
Because it is kind of bizarre, isn't it?
In what way?
Well, it's different than what we've done before. Like, to me, to sort of say, well, the riddle is only understood at the time when 5 are fallen, 1 is. Because that's kind of narcissistic of us, right? Here we are, the ones understanding this riddle, because we now recognize when is. And as far as I know, sure, Colin has applied this to the presidents of the United States, but he's done that as an application, not as a direct prophecy. Where we're saying that when it says there are 7 kings, it's not reinterpreting history and just applying the heads to the kings. It's saying that this is 7 kings. That's the United States. During the time when the beast is not, we have these 7 kings. It's at the end of the United States. This is, of course, the false prophet. So the false prophet has 7 kings, the last 7 kings of the US. Those are those kings that are being referred to. And the 7 hills, the 7 mountains, right? The 7 heads of 7 mountains, that's just referring to the city of Rome. The heads are not the kings, right? And then we can see how these parallel the last 7 kings of Judah. And you can see that progression in the time of Zedekiah. That's when the kingdom's going to be taken captive by Babylon. Well, it's actually under Babylon from Jehoiakim through to Zedekiah. But then it's going to be overturned until he who comes, whose right it is. And the beast of Revelation 13, the woman, she is counterfeiting Christ's resurrection, right? That's why she's the 8th. And so in doing this study, from my perspective, from how I've looked at all the information, I've resolved for me personally all of the conflicts that I had with Revelation 17. Now, maybe there's contradictions or conflicts that I haven't noticed, that I've created, that we've created, but I would say it's mostly me thinking out loud, and you guys are giving some input. But we came to this conclusion based on looking at everything. Right? We didn't leave any stone unturned. And we can then say, when we look at Daniel chapter 11, verse 2, that makes sense. Now, the other thing about it too is that we also have the fact of the globalists, and we know that Trump loses to the globalists. So that would be another thing that, because we know that Trump is Xerxes, so we know that from other ways. But it has to be true after the fall of Trump that we can say 1 is. We can't say that during the time of Trump. You understand what I just said?
Well, when Colin did his study on the 25th December 2021, he was kind of backdating it. To me, that did seem like an issue, because Biden was the 1 is really when that was kind of brought to the understanding, that application of the riddle to the presidents.
Right. Right. But we have to have an overthrow, right? Xerxes loses to Greece. So you have to have the 5 are fallen. Now, the one is in that story is going to be Greece, right? And that's why the next kingdom shown is going to be Alexander's kingdom. We're not going to have Artabanus or Artaxerxes in Daniel chapter 11, right?
Hmm.
So this helps us also place that 5 are fallen. It has to be Cyrus, Cambyses, Falsmurtus, Darius, and Xerxes. The one that is has to be represented by Greece. Now, here, Biden is the president, right? He's not Greece. He's still a president of the United States. But the United States has been conquered by Greece when Trump loses on January 6, 2021, when that civil war or that siege occurs, right? So that's why we have to say the one that is Biden, right? So that's another reason why we could place Biden there as the one that is. So the 5 that are fallen are Trump. One is. So the one that's still to come can't be the 8th, because the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and comes from the 7. That is the 7 being the beast of Revelation 13, the second one, is going to create an image to the beast and cause all the world to worship the beast in his image, right? So that's why the beast is the 8th, and it's of the 7. Without the 7, there is no image to the beast for the beast to be resurrected. Because, right, remember, it makes an image to the beast. And what is that image to the beast? What does it cause it to do?
Well, it makes the whole world take the mark.
Yeah, well, it says it should both, that the image of the beast should both speak, right, and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast that should be killed. We also know it receives a wound by a sword and did live, right? So the United States creates the image to the beast, and in creating an image to the beast, it allows the beast to live, right? Because it had this mortal wound, and it's also going to speak. But now the image of the beast speaks, but remember, the image of the beast is this mixture of church and state through the United States, but it's still giving this beast, which had a wound, so that it can live, right? So that makes the most sense. To have the 8th to be a president is not consistent. Okay, so that's all we're saying here, because the beast that was not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7. And when you look at the Greek here and you look at what that means, it doesn't mean he's one of the 7, right? Whatever that was. Yeah, the beast that was is not, even he is. So I'm just going to go to. Yeah, so you're going to have this word, his origin, he comes out of, and also this, so he is of the 7 and goeth unto perdition. So he's not one of the 7, because it doesn't say that. Okay. So anyway, we're done for today. Not sure what we're going to do tomorrow, how we're going to continue this study, where we're going to go with this, but people need to think about it. They need to pray about it. They need to study it. They need to comment on the video. If they have objections, if they have things that we missed, we need to know about them so that we can be corrected. So let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for the study today and for each person who is searching these things out. We pray for one another. We ask for your angels' care and protection. And help us, Lord, to recognize our sin, things that need to change in our lives, and to trust in you for righteousness. Be with us throughout this day. Bring us together again to study your word according to thy will, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.